I'm in a ranty mood today, so I'm going to yell about the Jayson Tatum rumors. I'm going to yell about this suggestion about Bill Russell's number being retired across the league. Where were you guys when he was alive? And also some fun with the backup bigs. The Celtics might be playing a little bit of trickery with the roster there. It's all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you for making this show part of your regular routine. We are now here for you Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3 days a week through August and September. More as the situation merits, but right now it's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. It's free, it's fresh, it's available everywhere. And you can watch the show on YouTube. Subscribe there, watch, and see what my background's going to look like from day to day. I'm John Karalis. I should introduce myself, right? I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. It's my 16th season covering the Celtics in one form or another. So I've been around for a while. I've also written a book called Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. Today, we're covering a few things that have kind of come through the cracks later on. We'll a little more Bill Russell at the end of the show to wrap things up. The big man search continues. That'll be in the second segment with a couple of names you may recognize, but may not know a whole lot about. But I got to start, first of all, with Tom Westerholm.
Hello.
Tom, how are you? I'm
good, man. I was thinking about this the other day when you were doing your pre-show spiel. I'm in my 9th season covering the Celtics, which is kind of crazy because if you look at like percentage wise, like the amount of my life that I've dedicated to this team is wow.
Yeah.
Like when you really start to look at percentages, you start to be like, huh.
Yeah.
That's like a batting average is what that is.
Yeah. 16 years is almost exactly 1/3 of my entire life. Yeah. Like counting like, all right, so we shave off year 1, and after that, it's 1/3 of the rest. So it's been a while, man. I've been doing this.
I feel like you could shave off like at least 2 or 3 because like you weren't functional for those 2 or 3 years. You couldn't.
Oh no! Look, and honestly, if we're being honest, my background in basketball is so different. Like I don't have the same story as everybody. I don't know how many people know my entire backstory, but like firstborn son of Greek immigrants. So, back then there wasn't like a basketball. Basketball wasn't big in Greece. It's gotten huge in Greece. But when we came over, I don't have my dad was a Celtics fan. He took me to the old garden. We sat there and the Bill Simmons story. Like I don't have that background. I didn't start watching NBA basketball until the 80s. So, I mean, I was already into we'll say maybe 10 years old, somewhere in that range. Don't know exactly when it was. So if you shave off 10 years right there. So now that's almost half my life. Since I was first introduced to basketball. I guess some pictures of me as a cute little kid with a basketball, but my basketball journey's been weird. It's been a lot of catching up. So
I do feel like that's one reason that we get along is because we both have had very weird basketball journeys.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, I guess I feel that's the reason we fake getting along for the cameras, and then go back to beefing.
Oh, I didn't realize we were letting people in on that. I hate you so much. I mean, God, it's just brutal. I mean, the mustache alone.
It's rough.
Let's just let's just, you know what, scrap the whole format. I'm just going to spend the next 26 minutes here on an extended rant berating your mustache. All right. Problem the first.
I feel like if you berated me for 26 minutes, it would be your best performing podcast of the summer, but that's all right.
It'd be my best work. All right. But you know what? Okay, I'm not going to berate you, but I do want to berate somebody. Anybody.
Look at this professional.
I gotta start with this. I talked about this on Locked On NBA because I just
transitioned from a man with a green screen.
Yeah. I just talked about this on the Locked On NBA podcast because we touched on this stuff, the anonymous GM stuff. Some anonymous GM, but it started out with your tweet, like kind of throwing it on Sean, like, okay, Sean Marks, we get it. You know, that joke that you made on Twitter.
Which was a joke, everybody. I know it wasn't probably actually Sean Marks, but for the anyway.
Probably. Maybe. I don't know. Who was it? Was it Mitch Kupchak? Was it, I don't know, Daryl Morey? Who was it?
Yeah.
Who was it? Some GM says, I'd trade Jayson Tatum for Kevin Durant. And I understand the theory that you're trading one person for one person, basically.
Yeah.
And you're maintaining all of the depth and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Theoretically, I understand the 1-for-1 in a 1-year vacuum type of thing, but it's never going to happen. No, it's not going to be something that any of the Celtics pursue at all. There's no chance of it happening. And what's the point of even putting it out there? Because some guy who runs another team says, oh, I'd trade Jayson Tatum. Somehow that becomes newsworthy. And I know, look, you and I both reporters. And sometimes we dig into our Rolodex, or that's an old man reference, in our phone contacts and say, hey, let me call this guy I'm pretty cool with. He runs, whatever franchise. Let me ask him a couple of questions. I don't understand why that has become a default. Whoa, we got to take this seriously because another GM says he'd trade Jayson Tatum. Really? We're going to take this seriously now? Because some other guy with who knows what motivation, who knows what he's trying to pull. Maybe it's Danny Ainge and he's trying to tweak Brad Stevens. Like, hey, watch this. I'd trade Jayson Tatum. Let me text Brad. Brad, wait till you see what Karalis reports. And they like bust each other's balls. I just don't get the value in treating someone's offhand comment seriously and going on to an extended debate, even in the dead of the offseason, when we need something to talk about. Why waste your time talking about stuff that's just not ever going to happen? I don't get it.
I mean, I think there's a few things to it, right? There's the fact that we are talking about it. We're leading a podcast with it. Somebody tweeted it out and it got, hundreds of retweets and likes. And, it's just, I think a big part of what's happening is just the content machine churning in a way that is not productive and not actually teaching anybody anything about the game or telling anybody anything they need to know. Or, the only thing that you can really get out of this rumor, if you even want to call it that, this quote unquote rumor is like, I guess from this quote is that GMs like to do stuff kind of, like behind the scenes a little bit. Like they like, because like you said, this trade isn't happening. I know this trade isn't happening. Everybody out there knows that this trade isn't happening because one, I don't think they can, right? Like I think that there's like a rule against them having Ben Simmons and Jayson Tatum on the same team.
Right. Tatum has a designated. So yeah, I didn't even throw that in there.
So there's one, they could get rid of Ben Simmons. Fine, no problem. But like, so there's one reason. And then number two, it's just like the Celtics objectively are not going to trade Jayson Tatum for Kevin Durant. Like I think everybody knows that. But I mean, look, this is what we do now, right? Like we chase numbers, we chase like whether it's retweets and likes or whatever it is, whether it's somebody who aggregates this and makes it into a big thing. I don't think that this one matters that much because I think Jayson Tatum could look at this very easily and just be like, yeah, no, they're not. Like obviously,
of course not.
And Brad Stevens, I bet Brad Stevens didn't even bother like calling him or texting him if he did. I'm sure it was like, hey, can you believe this crap that somebody put out there?
Yeah.
Like, this is not something that I think people need to like go too crazy about. But at the same time, it is very just kind of like this is what we've been reduced to. Like, honestly, we should just take a couple of months off. Like, we don't need to chase engagement for a couple months here. We can all just talk about our weird basketball journeys. Like, we don't need, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like
right.
Twitter doesn't need this. The basketball discourse doesn't need this. I'm probably going to get into this a little bit when we talk about Bill Russell, but like just the way that basketball is discussed these days is so like weird and watered down in ways that I just don't think are that productive. All it is just literally chasing numbers, chasing clout, chasing retweets, whatever it is. And it's very annoying and not productive, not good, not entertaining, whatever you want to call it.
Annoying. It is so damn annoying. It's so, because you're right. The way you put it, we're chasing engagement. We're and we think that engagement means, oh, that's good. Oh, that's good.
Right.
This is what people want. Like, no, but people also want McDonald's. Like, you don't eat McDonald's.
That's a great analogy.
You know, like that's what this is. It's a Big Mac and fries, and you're like, oh, this is great. This is delicious. And at the end, you're like, oh God, I'm sick. I shouldn't have gone. I shouldn't have done that at all, because there's no value to it. You know, it's, I get it. We need to fill the space. And this is a product of debate shows, because everybody loves the debate shows. Not everybody, not me. I hate them. But people love the debate shows. They do. Hey, I don't like country music either, but it's popular, super popular. If you like country music, congratulations. Great. It's not my thing.
Yep.
Super popular, right? That's what makes the world go round. People like some things, other people like other things. That's great. We can all get along and like our own things. Just because I like one thing doesn't mean I have to like the other thing or whatever. We can get along. But I just absolutely despise how this conversation goes, because, what the part that gets me is the tweets that I get, like, oh, Karalis. Because it was yesterday's Locked On NBA as well. It was the Tuesday Locked On NBA. That was part of because it came up. We need something to podcast about. Those guys talked about it a little bit. And then, okay, fine. But then I get it. And like, Karalis, what's going on over there? And then I'm like, oh God, I can't believe we're even here. What are we doing?
Nothing is happening with this.
We're talking because we have to. We're talking because we have to. And so it just drives me nuts. Locked On NBA, I talked about we got into the whole anonymous GM thing even deeper, but I feel sick even wasting 12 minutes. Actually, 30 seconds of that was me talking about berating your mustache. And so just shave down a little bit.
We're shaving things off here, like, except for my mustache. That's the only thing we're not shaving off.
Yeah, well, we'll see. One of these days, you're gonna wake up and I'm gonna be over you. You're gonna hear bzz, you're gonna feel like, what the? It's just gonna be half gone. It's gonna be. I will find you just to do it. No, man. All right, we'll talk about backup centers. We'll come back. We'll talk about backup centers. Actual basketball talk on August 3rd. I've got to start with BetOnline. BetOnline.net, the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. You can even find out the odds on Kevin Durant's next team. And there were even odds on Jaylen Brown. If he was going to, if not with the Celtics, would he be traded to Brooklyn? There's all those kinds of odds. You want to throw some money down on that? Be my guest. Find reviews and news of every league, including the NBA, obviously, Major League Baseball, NFL. Tom's been going nuts with the MLB stuff. All sorts of odds are going to be changing after the trade deadline. NFL, NHL, combat sports. Everybody loves the fights. Bet on the fights, esports, even golf. BetOnline continues to be your top online resource for your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. You can head on over to BetOnline today. You can use your mobile device to do so. And you can learn more about the action happening right now. BetOnline is where the game starts. Just ask you, please gamble responsibly. I talked a little bit about Locked On NBA. Make sure you're making Locked On NBA your second listen after making Locked On Celtics your first listen. Jake Madison and I do the Wednesday show, today, you already know we talked about the anonymous GM stuff. We talked about Steph Curry wanting to be a warrior for life. Can people be on the same team forever anymore? Will the new collective bargaining agreement make that more likely or less likely? And then we make fun of the Lakers. We make fun of Jeannie Buss for getting her Twitter hacked for selling PS5s. Would you buy a PS5 from an owner whose Twitter was hacked, Tom?
I've been known for sound financial advice. So let me just bring that to your Locked On listenership. And listen, anytime you see somebody tweeting out that they have PS5s, it is a good deal, and you should get in touch with them.
You're going to hop all over that.
You got to get on that.
It doesn't matter who it is. Jeannie Buss.
It doesn't matter how much they're asking. It's just a good deal.
I think anytime someone anonymously or somebody out of character starts asking you for your financial information, it's a safe bet. I mean, what can go wrong?
Just, it's a rocket ship to the moon every time.
Absolutely. Make sure you're handing over your social security number and your mother's maiden name. I have to actually say, don't do that after making those jokes. Don't do any of that stuff I just said, because somebody make whatever. I don't want to get sued. I don't want to get sued for whatever. I had this sick feeling like, oh God, I have to protect myself. All right. The Celtics are inviting Bruno Caboclo and Noah Vonleh, local kid, Noah Vonleh, to camp. They will each have a chance to compete for a roster spot. They've been bouncing around. Bruno Caboclo started out San Antonio. Vonleh's been bouncing around for a little while. And it just I think it goes to show, Tom, this search for the backup big, where they're going for the backup bigs. Like they're not exactly scouring the upper echelon. They're like kind of looking at, well, this guy's around. Let's see what he's got. Let's see how he might fit in this system, how he might respond. When we talk about how much money they're going to spend on players and all of that, this is a little indication of how the center spot goes and how much they've already got a bunch tied up in Al Horford, a bunch tied up in Robert Williams. They're just not going to tie up a bunch in another center. They can't have that much of their cap wrapped up in centers.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting to wonder what this means. Like, I know they've said, or they've kind of hinted that the last year's starting lineup is going to be able to kind of carry over into this next season. But I do wonder if they are looking at their depth, especially at combo guard, and if they're wondering how long that specific starting five will continue, right? Because there is reason, we've talked about it, there is reason to bring Al Horford off the bench. There's reason to, kind of mess with the lineups a little bit there. If you do that, then, you can just slot in Brogdon. If you need a defensive matchup, like maybe Derek White is your guy, whatever it is, if you want to keep that scoring on the bench, there's a million different possibilities they can do that might make their roster make a little bit more sense, even though last year's starting five was the best in the NBA by a significant margin. There are plenty of options on this roster, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I also think it's interesting to me, and this is I get that this is more small potatoes, but it's the offseason. So I'm fascinated by what they think of Luke Kornet, because when you go back and you listen to what Brad Stevens said when he said that they were going to go out and bring somebody else in, he actually expressed a lot of confidence in Luke Kornet. He said that he believes that Luke Kornet can help the Celtics win, and that he's now at the level where he's ready to do that. He kind of suggested that Luke Kornet might actually play. There's a chance that he's, a real part of this team next season, a real contributor next season. And I think that's interesting. I've heard good things about, Kornet's season in Maine. I didn't watch as much of it as I would have liked to, obviously, but he brings a lot of interesting stuff to the table. As a backup big man, as kind of a flyer, as a possibility in the event that you actually do want to keep that starting lineup intact. I'm interested in it. I think that going out and if the fact that the guys the Celtics are bringing in are Vonleh and Caboclo and guys where it's I don't know that this guy is an NBA player, that to me suggests a little bit of extra confidence in Kornet that I didn't have when Brad made those comments, but then Brad followed that up by signing Kabengele to a two-way contract. So anyway, I just think that's interesting. I think that there's a chance that Luke Cornett gets actual minutes on a contender next season.
I feel like the Celtics are playing a little bit of a game with the two-way spot this year with Kabengele. I think they're the two-way, and this is really interesting. And I don't know if this is the Celtics changing the game in how the two-way is used, because the it has evolved, right? It started out where a two-way contract was basically a glorified G League contract where you can play a couple dozen games with the big club, and you made, like, I forget what the initial number was, like 28,000, 30,000, 50,000 or something like that. You made money, like you made less money than I do, to play in the NBA.
But
And
you got bonuses if you hit all of your
sure,
NBA games played. Yeah.
sure, you
But
get
it was like
bonuses.
actually a big deal that like the franchise had to make sure you got your games in.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, the point is, the initial two-way contract was a minor little thing. Now you can play 50 games. Now you make 500,000.
Yeah.
So you're actually making kind of like rookie minimum, like you're or some percentage of it. So it makes sense for a guy like Kabengele to, if he doesn't have a real prospect and he doesn't want to go to the G League, and he has that eligibility, that one more year of eligibility for the two-way, might say, hey, look, I can go. I'm going to get an opportunity. I'm going to get some minutes potentially here and there, because Al Horford's old and he's going to need much more rest. And Robert Williams is probably going to be ramped up more slowly because they don't want to go through this whole injury thing again. And so there's opportunities for bigs. And I feel like Kabengele is they're gaming the system with him, and they could upgrade him later if he's playing well. But they're like, here's a guy. All we need him is for 50 games. We're not going to use him in the playoffs, because you can't play in the playoffs if you're a two-way guy. We're not going to use him in the playoffs. We're only going to need him here and there. He's going to get a bunch of DMPs anyway. But if Al needs a day off, then he can come in and play. And they're paying this guy $500,000 to not take a roster spot and not pay a tax on his salary and all of that stuff. I feel like there's going to be an interesting look at how the Celtics are using Kabengele by the league, by the Players Association, because it feels like they're circumventing. That's just my guess ahead of time. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are truly developing him. And frankly, there's no way to prove that they're not developing him. They might just say, send him to the G League for a few games just to like keep up the ruse, and then he can come in. Anyway, that's a very long-winded way for me of saying, like, yeah, you got Luke Cornett, who they will rely on. They have room for another big just to kind of stuff at the end of the bench. And they got Kabengele in case they run out of games with Kabengele. It's like, okay, here's Vonleh's going to get his minutes now. Here's your minimum contract.
Yeah. No, I think that's an interesting point. And it speaks to, because I mean, originally when you look for two-way guys, right, you're kind of looking for that finds. Like, we got that guy. Oh man, like that, that guy that we got in our organization.
Undrafted guy. Yeah,
exactly. Like Taco Fall, right? Like, hey, you never know. Like, maybe this guy is going to be good, And Kabengele isn't that. Like, what he is. You've seen him in the NBA. Like, maybe you can, maybe like you can make a case that that he's got some untapped potential. He's still pretty young, but even in that, it's like you look at his G League season last year. It's like, he's like pretty much what you think he is. He's like he's a very good basketball player. I don't know that he's an NBA player, but he's maybe he can fill in here and there. So I like that theory. I think that's interesting. And I personally, as a basketball observer and as a fan of fringe guys, I don't like it. I think they should go out and get the undrafted guy that I watched when I was watching some other really good prospect. And I was like, I think that guy's good, and I want to be proven right. But as team building, it makes a lot of sense. That I think that's my big beef with Brad, the GM, is he keeps making smart moves that disprove my theories, and I liked my theories better.
Yeah, I think using Kabengele as an actual roster spot without having to pay the tax on that roster spot is actually kind of brilliant. Kind of
It's
brilliant
kinda smart.
because he is absolutely not the typical two-way player.
No,
Absolutely not.
no, he's not.
There's no way you can convince me of that. I don't care what Brad says. I'm betting he gets all 50 games. I'm betting he gets minimal G League time at best. And I think this is just it's an NBA contract. And
Yep.
maybe they reward him with one of those, hey, we'll sign you to a minimum guarantee. You can't do these wink wink deals, so I don't know. This is just a theory, but like, look, we'll throw a little guarantee your way and waive you next year just to give you a little extra money or something like that, or something. But anyway, I think it's an interesting game there, and hey, if you need to move Cornette midseason and save some money and you use one of your TPEs to bring in a big that's better, and you can do that. You can absolutely do that, and that's another way out of whatever mess. But to start the season, sure, Vonleh, Caboclo, come on in. Let's see if you can pick up some of these things early on, and if you can't, then sorry. If you can, we'll give you one of those partially guaranteed contracts that doesn't guarantee until January. The guarantee date for the rest of the entire league guarantees on like January 15th. Give them a contract that gets them to that point. If you need them, you need them. If you don't, you cut them, and that just take it off the tax. Like it's kind of risk free. If you need them, if you think, and if for some reason Caboclo or Vonleh come in and like light the place on fire, all right, great. Guarantee him, trade Cornette, and that's how you have your tax savings that way. I don't think they're going to keep two other bigs and go four bigs. One of those guys is going to end up going by midseason. It just depends on who.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, that's that. Let's take a second. We'll come back. Obviously, the big topic this week was the loss of Bill Russell, and I did the podcast on Sunday. If you wanted my thoughts, my initial obituary thoughts on Bill Russell and his legacy and all of that, that was a straight just half hour of remembering Bill. We'll get into some other stuff here in just a second. So, Tom, I want to start with, I don't know, I guess I'm on a ranty mood today. I don't know why. Magic Johnson asked for the entire league to retire Bill Russell's number 6, which is a nice gesture, right? It's a nice gesture. Where was that thought when he was alive? He was 88 when he died. There's a long time where he was, his resume didn't change. Why do you wait until he dies to suggest, hey, let's retire his number across the entire league? What's changed? Why didn't anybody suggest this when he was alive? I mean, some people maybe did, but like I get a little, it doesn't sit right with me to wait for the guy so we can't see it, so he can't be honored by the entire league. You want to honor him and all that stuff. That's great. Well, Bill Russell has been in declining health for a while. Did no one think, hey, if we really want to do this, maybe we should do it now? They named the Finals MVP trophy after him. There's plenty of appreciation for Bill Russell. This notion of like, oh man, he's gone, we got to do something. Like, no, you should have done something by now. Give the man his due. He deserved to see it and soak it in and be appreciated. Now, sure, do it. I mean, I don't think the league will, but because at that point they're going to be like, well, now you got to retire. You got to retire 23, and now you got to retire. Where do you stop? And blah blah blah. But if anybody deserves it, it's Bill Russell for sure. But if anybody really does think that this should happen, where were you before? That's my thing.
Right, for sure. I also don't like that because I think one of the nice things to me about the way that Russell was remembered was just like I think there was a lot of focus on a lot of the positive stuff, right? It was a focus on like a life that was just so admirable that like you couldn't help but just kind of like marvel over it, right? Like
Yeah.
I was reading just kind of like reviewing some stuff that like just kind of quotes and different things from him, and just some of his thoughts on whether it was basketball and race and everything that goes on in America. And it was a very I don't want to call it, it wasn't like a fun evening, but it was like a very sort of rich evening. Just kind of
Mhm.
like just
Yeah.
reading about him. And I really liked that about a lot of the remembrances of him, and the focus on who he was and what he did. And not so much this focus on like, well, what should we do to remember him? I think we should just remember him, right? I think
Yes.
we should just like take the things that he talked about and really sit with them and really just kind of implement them almost in our lives and in our conversations with people. And that to me, I think, is more it's great to have remembrances, but like the man's in the Hall of Fame. He's considered one of the greatest players of all time. He's has a statue in Boston. Like you said, the Finals MVP is named after him. Like all of this stuff that is so well deserved and is a great remembrance of him. And I kind of think that like it's not. I'm not saying like, oh, that's enough, we don't need to do more. I'm just saying like I think that the great thing about Russell is that if you just kind of remember who he was as a man, and you kind of like go back and read what he had to say and think about what he had to say, that's going to be a really good, I think, kind of memoriam of him, and one that I think he would appreciate more anyway, because you go back and like Russell didn't want a statue in Boston. Like, Russell
Right.
wanted equality, like,
Right.
I think those things mattered to him a lot more than finals MVP trophy, if I were to guess.
Sure. Sure. I think the league, they should put the number 6 patch on every jersey
I agree.
this upcoming season. I think every jersey should have that 6 on the upper part of the jersey, that he's big enough where that's the case.
I agree.
Uh, but you are 100% right on uh, honoring him is the done best by living the way he suggested that we live. And that, this does kind of step into the political arena, but that's politics and sports have been infused since the beginning. So when people say stick to sports, it's kind of still the same thing. Bill Russell, his fight, as you said, was for equality. And there's, I retweeted a thing from his book where he talks about um, homosexuals and treating, the gay community being persecuted, and him saying like, look, no, I'm not going to, you know, uh, shield my kids from how other people live and are and identify and all of that. So I'm going to teach them about everybody, because everybody's special in their own way. And it's it's a very amazing point of view, because there are a lot of people who are fighting for equality on one side, and then we'll turn around and be like marginalizing some other group. And I think a lot of people are kind of fighting for equality, but not quite all the way. And everybody's got their focus, right? You identify as something that's a marginalized group, you fight for that, and that's your focus. That's great. That's exactly, everybody should be fighting for their recognition and their equality and all of that, but not. Uh, I just enjoy when people understand that fight for equality is something that is universal and that spreads across all marginalized groups, so whatever your identity, however and I'm trying to be careful because I want to make sure I'm saying the right things. um whatever it is, is it a fight for, women's rights, gay rights, trans rights, you know racial equality, anything, everything is part of it. And Bill Russell lived that life, that treat everybody with that level of we're all the same, man. We really are all the same. And you know, I joked earlier about I don't like country music, but you do, or not you, but like some people who are watching and
I actually
listening.
do. I will cop
You
to
do?
that.
All right, great. You do. You know, like so like great. Like great. You know, I like certain foods. I like, you know, I like to have a drink. Some people don't drink. Some people don't like, some people are vegetarian, some people are vegan. Like there's just everybody has their choices to make, and some people like have some people I just identify in different ways, and it's just, none of it matters. Doesn't matter however you identify, whatever your tastes are. We're all basically in this for the same thing. All we want to do is we want to make some money. We want to live a comfortable life around our friends and family. We want to be in, generally speaking, we want to be in some sort of relationship with whomever it is that we love. We want to feel loved, and that's basically it. We want to have enough money in our pocket to go out and have some fun every once in a while. We want a place to live. When we have food, like no one wants to be hungry. No one wants to be poor. Uh, Everybody wants just a tiny bit of disposable income. You want to feel loved. That's kind of basically it. We're all just kind of looking for those same things, and there's no reason to not have that, whatever it is, and have the other person not have that, even if it's different. Like who cares what that other person has? You have that stuff, great. Do you have that stuff, Tom? Great. I have it. I feel good. You know, doesn't matter what my combination of things is. All that matters is like, hey, we're all just kind of in this to do the same thing. If we just realize we're all in it to do the same thing and get kind of like in pursuit of the same things, then I think we're fine. And I really do feel like that's kind of where Bill Russell kind of landed. You know, just let me do my thing. Don't treat me different because I'm black. Don't treat me different because I'm from the South. Don't treat me different because I'm a basketball player. Just treat me like Bill. And I think if that's kind of where people land, then I think everybody's just gonna be happy. And I think that's kind of what everybody wants.
Yeah, I think one of the things I really appreciated about kind of the stuff that Russell said was when like he wasn't gonna take injustice like sitting down ever. Like he was, you
Right.
know, like he was a strong man who came from strong men and learned from strong men. I was reading the stuff that he talked about with his his father, his grandfather, and how they dealt with racism, and it was not it was not like, well, let's talk it out. Let's have a conversation. It's like,
Yeah.
like his grandfather literally told a man, okay, well, if you're not going to give me the thing that I purchased, and if you're not going to give me my money back, I guess the third option is that I'm going to kill you. And then he went and got a gun. And it's like, that's who Russell learned from, is like men like that. Like, and that's like, and I mean, the quote that he had that really hit me so hard was like, he learned about dealing with racism and injustice. It was first, you must make the price of injustice too high to pay, and second, that events that are not reflective of your character but of the character of the perpetrator. I just think like it's that you must make the price of injustice too high to pay. Like you can't, like basically you can't let them get away with it, right? Like you can't let that stand. And I always, I think he was a man who was not going to let injustice stand. And I think I hope that I don't know. I just think that if you care about equality, if you care about justice, if you care about those things, then then you have to be anti inequality. You have to be anti injustice. You can't just be pro. You also have to be against the opposite of it.
Yeah.
And you have to make that felt.
No, that's right. That's 100% right. That's 100% right. When you see it, you got to say something. You can't just be like, ooh, that was bad, and then walk away. You'd be like, can't do that. Can't say. And you know what? I'll spin this into kind of like what LeBron said, which was unfair, painting the entire fan base. But there are incidents, I'm sure, in Boston, just like there are incidents at other arenas. This is your opportunity. You're listening. You're watching. If something happens at the Garden, say something. You can't just be, if you hear somebody using a slur, if you see somebody acting a certain way, kick that person out. get that person's tickets revoked. We don't have room for this. We don't have room for that stuff in our society. We don't have room for that stuff in the Garden. And again, I don't think LeBron I think he was talking in a different tone. About it wasn't like saying that it's happening every day at the Garden. But I'm sure it happens because it happens everywhere. Eradicate it. And if you're listening, if you're watching, if you're at a game and somebody says something, absolutely. Got to say it. You got to stand up to that person. You got to get that person out, and you got to make that person pay and have that person understand. Like you said, there's a price to pay for doing that. And we don't want that in our arena. We don't want it. We don't need it. We can't have it. It's just there's no other way to say it. If you're going to honor Bill Russell in any way, that's a great way. It's, you gotta stand up. Gotta do something.
Make the price of injustice too high to pay.
That's it. Man,
and season tickets are a pretty high price to pay. So
that's a very high price to pay, man. That's a very high price to pay. You people splurge on those tickets. Just because you bought the tickets, just because you laid out that incredible sum of money, that doesn't mean that you get the right to say anything you want. Doesn't mean you get the right to be a jerk. And certainly doesn't give you the right to say anything racist. That nothing gives you the right to say anything racist. Bill Russell, man, he's once again struggling to find the right words because the world needs more guys like him. The world just losing a guy like him hurts because of how much it takes away from everything. Not just, we lost a basketball legend. It takes away from the sport, it takes away from society. It takes away just having this person there that you knew every so often would show up and you'd be like, man, that Bill, he is amazing. Not having him here, man, that there are some holes that can't be filled.
Yeah.
This is one of them. Sucks.
No, absolutely. And again, I hope that people take that opportunity to learn from him and to really remember the man, because it's worth it. It's worth going back and it, like, you won't regret it. Like, sometimes, I know, people are like, oh, you should go look into this old basketball player, and like maybe you don't feel like it because there's all this new stuff coming out. But like Russell's worth it. Like, you will never regret going back and learning more about Bill Russell, because he was a fascinating, brilliant man who can teach you a lot about everything, frankly.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's a good place to wrap things up. I mean, we could talk for like 3 hours.
I'll do another Russell pod if you want to do another Russell pod. Like, I would love to.
I know. We could probably just do one every day for the rest of the summer.
Yeah.
If we wanted to. Well, we'll figure that out. All right. Tom Westerholm, Tom_NBA. You see his writing on Boston.com. Tom, once again, thank you.
I appreciate you.
And I appreciate you. Tom's a good dude, man. Tom's a good dude, too. I'm a lucky guy. I really am a lucky guy. I might be one of the luckiest people around, man. I'm surrounded by good people. I made sure Tom's not on camera to hear this. Actually, he can't hear it. But I want to thank everybody. I'm really lucky to have you, the listener, you, the watcher, because you guys really make the podcast go. Thank you for sticking around through the off season. Again, 3 days a week through the off season. I mean, I think some other podcasts aren't doing 3 podcasts a month. We're doing 3 podcasts a week. So make sure you stick around. Locked On Celtics, free, fresh podcast, 3 days a week now for August and September. More if necessary. And Friday, I'm going to do the mailbag. So obviously Monday was the Bill Russell. Normally I'm doing mailbag Mondays because of the alliteration. But, I'm not married to that. We can do them on any other day. So because of the events of the week, I will do the mailbag on Friday. So plenty of questions already in, but you can submit yours. JohnKaralis.com/mailbag. JohnKaralis.com/mailbag to ask your question. And I do appreciate your subscribing. Watch the show on YouTube if you like to do that. And, of course, share the podcast Tell your friends, family, everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.